To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Spurling.
Here.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Here.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
All right, we're all here this evening. First item is public participation. The first one is a 2-minute opportunity if any resident or person is here this evening that would like to address the board. Now is your opportunity to come down. I don't know if we had anybody today.
You got anything to clarify? I was going to say,
You know, you want to talk on the tax levy or
yeah.
something in general?
No, it's,
Okay, I'll move on to item B, which is the public hearing on the tax levy. So I'll open the public hearing, and then if you want to come to the podium.
Okay. My name is Walter Sattler, and I live here on Third Avenue. And I was up here talking to a couple of the board members, and I think my questions have been answered. And I'll just mention it now because I've had other people ask me when they were talking about, putting that 1% tax and to vote for that bill that was up. Basically, after going to the meeting at the VFW Hall and stuff, I was under the understanding that if we would vote for it and it would be put in place for the road tax and so forth, that our real estate taxes wouldn't go up. And they were just explaining to me that it's been changed and it's not going to go up because there was something in the paper about our taxes going up. And so that's what really I came for, just so I can tell my neighbors, that I didn't tell them a lie. So anyway, and the next thing I just wanted to mention just shortly is they did fix our street. They did a very nice job on it. But I don't know, we had one bad rain this past year and the water was still running across the street. So by changing the ditch, I don't think that solved the problem. But like I say, we haven't had any really serious rains since they finished fixing it, so. But since it won't be on the agenda for any money, does this mean that we're gonna have to wait, if it's still a problem, we're gonna have to wait for like another 2 years before we can start getting money for it, or what, how do you do that? Because they said that they're gonna have financial stuff by the end of this year. If they have to put a storm sewer in, is what I'm trying to say. Does anybody?
Mike, do you want to, can you address that one?
Right, as part of the upcoming budget process, staff at EEI and I will prepare a cost estimate for putting storm sewer on Third Avenue.
Yes.
And then it'll be up to the board to decide if that's where we want to spend our funding.
So it will be brought up this year yet?
This calendar year, I'm not sure. It'll be part of this budget process, which.
Well, you're doing it this year for next year, right?
Right, it would be for next construction
Yeah.
season, yeah.
Because it's not going to work. We've already had a problem. I mean, it was running across the street. They did change that little drain thing there, but it's just can't handle the water that we have there, so.
Well, it ran across the street one time, and the ditches we had on the other side of the street caught that water. So the initial problem.
That was the only bad rain we've had since you guys fixed it.
Right.
And it was going across the
And
street.
every other rain, it's worked fine.
Yeah, okay. But I just
I'm not
didn't
sure.
want to not bring it up and have to wait a couple more years before we can even ask for any money to get it fixed.
Well, that's up to the board. I think you can ask whenever you want. And again, we'll prepare a cost estimate, and then it's just a matter of construction priorities. The goal going into that, just from my perspective, was to ease yard flooding, mainly on the the north side of Third. And I think we've accomplished that. It doesn't contain every rain, but even the storm sewer isn't going to contain every rain. So
I know, but it was a safety problem too, because of the fact when the water run across the street, when it got cold, that water was freezing, and then the school buses and stuff that come down our street, they couldn't make the hill. They had to go around the other way. They got stalled there, and I considered that a safety hazard at the time with
Water
with it running
coming out
across
of
the
the ditch
street.
or water coming down your neighbor's driveway?
What?
Water coming out of the ditch or water coming down your neighbor's driveway?
Well, the whole thing. I mean, it's,
Okay.
you know, that's a really big hill there. People don't realize how big that hill is, so. Anyway,
We'll
I
be-
just
we'll
want
be
to make
looking
you
at-
aware, I don't think it's going to work, but,
Yeah,
And-
I don't think this is the end of the conversation. So, we'll be doing cost estimates and discussing it as part of the budget process. That staff is starting on that now, and I think we'll present that to the board generally in January, thereabouts. So it's kind of a long process, but we'll have lots of conversations on it still.
would you send me an email if you can have, bring it up at a meeting or something, so I can tell other people to be here?
I'll do my best. Your best bet is to probably watch the village website, and the agendas are all posted on the website for what's going to be discussed. But
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for working on our streets. It looks good.
Thank
So
you.
I don't know if any of you guys have gone down that way, but they did a good job. Thank you.
Certainly.
Drove
Thank
that
you
way
all.
last weekend and observed the same.
Justin, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was going to ask, the sales tax referendum that passed, could you walk through a timeline of when the village might expect to see those additional funds?
Sure. On the sales tax, both counties need to certify the vote that was taken at the beginning of November. That should be completed by November 30th, roughly. We expect as staff to bring the enactment of the sales tax itself back to the board in December. Once that is approved in December, it needs to be submitted to the state. There are two deadlines, one's in October and one's in May. So we missed the October deadline, but we'll submit it by May. It will then be activated in July of 2015. Those monies that we receive from sales tax, we receive approximately 3 months after the sale takes place. So we should start receiving those funds approximately October 1st of 2015.
Thank you. Do you have something?
I'm guessing he has stuff about the tax levy, that's we're in the public hearing.
Yes, I was going to move item for separate action. If we can move, if there's no opposition, to move item C up, just so we discuss it first while Walter's still here. We can discuss that then, if that's okay with everybody. We'll get into your questions at that time. Okay, is there anybody else for the public hearing on the tax levy? Hearing no one else, we'll close the public hearing. Move on to item C, which is a proclamation for Drunk and Drugged Driving Prevention Month. I'll read the proclamation and entertain a motion. Whereas motor vehicle crashes killed 991 people in Illinois during 2013, and whereas hundreds of those deaths involved a driver impaired by alcohol and/or drugs, and whereas the December holiday season is traditionally one of the most deadly times of year for impaired driving, and whereas thousands of families across the state and the nation, holidays are a time to remember loved ones lost. And whereas organizations across the state and the nation are joined with the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over and other campaigns that foster public awareness of the dangers of impaired driving and anti-impaired driving law enforcement initiatives. And whereas the Village of Montgomery is proud to partner with the Illinois Department of Transportation's Division of Traffic Safety and other traffic safety groups in an effort to make our roads and streets safer. Now therefore, I, Matt Brawley, Village President, the Village of Montgomery, do hereby proclaim December 2014 as Drunk and Drugged Driving Prevention Month in Montgomery, and do call upon all citizens, government agencies, business leaders, and all public and private institutions to promote awareness of the impaired driving problem, to support programs and policies to reduce the number of incidents of impaired driving, and to promote safer and healthier behaviors regarding the use of alcohol and other drugs this December holiday season and throughout the year. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, I'll move on to Mira Johnson, invite her to the podium. She's going to address the board regarding Rotary Club possibility in Montgomery.
All right. Thank you for having me. Oh, I have to sign it. All right, thank you for having me speak. I have been researching this issue for a while. As you know, Montgomery really doesn't have any community service organization in place. I know a few years ago, I've heard that we had a Lions Club. I think that was a while ago. And Optimist Club was beginning to form. They met a few times and then they dissolved. So I think it's important for us to have some sort of community service organization. I know the Chamber was very active in the past with doing scholarships for students. They did the Oktoberfest. They did several events, but over the years, they've kind of stopped doing that. And so nobody has really taken up some of those events or some of those issues. The village has done some. I know the River Run has continued and is a big success. And there's some other events like the Cookie Santa event that goes on. But we can do so much more as a community. I mean, we're now a population of 18,000 people. We went from 5,000 to 18,000. And I'm sure there is interest in some sort of community service organization. I know that we're kind of fragmented, and I don't know if that's because of our size or because we've grown into the two counties and whatnot, but, you know, we have different fire districts, libraries, school districts, and so it's kind of hard to be one cohesive unit, and the village itself, the village hall and the community, the village with the board, is kind of the one thing that's constant, and so you guys have sort of a pulse on what residents want and what business leaders want and whatnot. So that's why I'm here tonight, to kind of get your, I want to say approval, but your blessing to pursue this further. Now, Rotary is the one that I've researched several, and Rotary is the one that I kind of like the best, some of their policies and the way their professionalism and whatnot. So I think between Lions Club and Rotary Club, who were both formed in the Chicagoland area in the 1900s, by the way, early 1900s. I would prefer Rotary, but I'm open to Lions Club or Optimist Club or any type of other community service organization. So I think that's all I really have to say.
Thank you. Any comments for Mira?
Terrific.
You have my support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, so this is something that I'll probably work on in the next coming year, and I'm thinking to contact the chamber and try to work with them a little bit, and also just put out a call for people who are interested. And I've already contacted Rotary International. They're in Evanston, and they, I think you're required to have 15 founding members, and you can meet once a week. And you can meet like in the morning, so you can have a breakfast, so 7 a.m., or lunch, or even dinner. And so maybe a breakfast would be better for us, maybe on a Wednesday morning or Tuesday morning. And we can meet in this vicinity. I know Riverview's doing their renovations, or the VFW, or even the Village Hall. So the possibilities are endless. I just wanted to put it out there to the board, because I know you guys are the ones that talk to people and are involved in the community more than anybody else, so. All right, that's it, thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor,
Mayor.
I'd be
Thank you,
glad
Mayor.
to help you with getting this going.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate it. And taking the leadership and filling a void that we know that we've had. There's some things that we often have a conversation where it's, well, that's not really inside the jurisdiction of the village, and we wish that there was some type of organization. So I appreciate that, and you know, you have my support.
Before we move on, can we just thank Mira for all her work on the sales tax referendum and the time and energy you put into that? We really appreciate that. Just wanted you to know that.
Okay, I'll move on to the consent agenda this evening. I'll read the items and entertain a motion. The minutes of the village board meeting of November 10th, the executive session minutes of November 10th, accounts payable through November 20th, accounts receivable for October of 2014, the board policy, the multipurpose room use policy, a request from Bread of Life Outreach Program to conduct tag days, December 5th and 6th. Ordinance 1638, reducing the number of Class G liquor license. This is a waiver of the first and passage on the second. And then H is a recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals of ZBA 2014-015, which is the telecommunication tower variance for Fox Metro. And then H is the ordinance enacting such, Ordinance 1637, and then enacting that variance. And that's a waiver of the first and passage on the second.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Moved in second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
And that carries 6-0. Thank you. So we'll move on to items for separate action. I've asked that we move item C up, just so that our residents can go home if they don't want to stick around. So item C is ordinance 1640, adopting the tax levy for 2014. This is the first reading, so we will not be taking action on this item this evening. With that, I will ask Director Van Voren for his summary on this.
Thank you, Village President Brawley. Based on feedback from the board at the announcement of the tax levy on November 10th, the board asked that we reduce the amount on the existing residents from 1.5%, which was the tax cap, down to 0%. What is currently included in the tax levy is solely that amount that is applicable to new property. Otherwise, the increase on existing property is at 0 at this point. If there are any questions, I can certainly take those at this time.
Thank you. Any questions of Justin on this? And I think that answers the questions that Walter had, that we're not voting to increase the taxes, we're effectively freezing it at last year's level, which is actually 2 years ago, because we froze it last year. If there are no comments on this, this is the first reading, so we take no action. We'll add that to items for separate action for our next board meeting or a future meeting. Try and blame that on somebody else, but
This is my fault.
it's my sister trying to FaceTime. Why wouldn't you? All right, move on to item A this evening, which is a recommendation of the Plan Commission of PC 2014-014, which is a special use for outdoor storage and rezoning from M2 General Manufacturing District to M1 Limited Manufacturing District. And as you recall, we discussed this at our last meeting. I asked that it be listed for separate action because Trustee Spurling was not here at that meeting. So if there's anything further, an update from staff on this?
Thank you, President Brawley. There really isn't any update from last week's meeting. I have not talked to Trustee Spurling about this item, but this was an item that was recommended for approval by the Plan Commission. It involves outside storage at the rear of the building at 2175 Awcut, which will be taken over by Heinz Building Supply. They purchased Mike's Decks on Albright. And they'll have a full range of retail services, and the reason for the rezoning request is because retail sales are not allowed within the M2. They are, however, allowed in the M1 as a special use, and so that's why the item is here for that portion tonight. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We had one question last week about parking, and that's been resolved in terms of alternative routing, if you will, a one-way lane around the building if parking becomes a problem. There could be some parallel parking added on the west side of the parking lot.
And the Plan Commission, I believe, discussed that at length as well, the parking situation.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Is that calling?
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. Move on to item B, which is ordinance 1636, which is granting a special use for outdoor storage. I'm assuming that nobody has anything else to add on this.
I'll defer to trustee Spurling.
Thank you. I move to approve this one.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Youngerman. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. We'll move on to item D. As you recall, we did C already. Resolution 2014-018. It's calling an irrevocable letter of credit from Marquis Point. And I can tell he perched up, so I'll turn it over to Attorney Anderson for this one.
Oh, you could read my body language.
I could.
This is one of those unfortunate situations where I hope we still can avoid it, but every subdivision in the village is required to post letters of credit or bonds to secure all the public improvements that need to be made in those subdivisions until they're actually made. Marquis Point, of course, has been a little bit less than active over the years since 2008, but has always maintained its letter of credit because they didn't want to have to put in all the public improvements all at once. That annually comes up for renewal, their letter of credit, and for whatever reason this year, they haven't renewed it. We've made, repeated requests, the staff has, to just get that renewed, but at the same time, we cannot simply ignore it because it expires, I think, December 1st, if I recall correctly. And if we don't take action to call it, then it'll be gone. And so I'm still hoping we're going to get a replacement letter of credit. But in the event we don't, we need to take the action that we're recommending that you take tonight so that we can move forward on making that demand for payment. Hopefully it all gets straightened out, but if it doesn't, this is what we need to do. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to amend the ordinance or the resolution slightly, and that's in section 2, that when you make your motion is to approve it, subject to the revision of the attorney. And that'll then read, the basis for said default is a failure to timely renew the irrevocable letter of credit and has failed to complete the required improvements. Because obviously, if they'd completed the improvements, it would be okay for it to expire. So that's it, just a minor thing. That's it unless there are questions.
I have a question. They've renewed their letter of credit every year since the inception of the development, except for really the year. Now, they put up a couple houses, I believe, this year. If their letter of credit expires, can we prevent them from building future homes?
Well, in theory, you won't need to, because if they actually don't renew the letter of credit, then we will collect on this bond. We will have the money to put in all of the improvements that they were supposed to put in. If I'm right about that, and I believe I am, then there would be no reason not to allow building and construction to occur, because we'll have put in all the public improvements. You get the concept? The only reason that we would have to stop them is if they had breached their agreement. In a sense, they are, but by giving us the money via a letter of credit to do all the improvements anyway, it kind of cures itself.
Does this prevent this Marquis Point from becoming another Huntington Chase?
For the most part, yes. The difference here is that this isn't a performance bond. Huntington Chase is a performance bond, and of course, they've been delaying for years and years through the court system in that process. A letter of credit is much quicker and is also, generally speaking, more secure. In other words, it's more like actual cash than an insurance policy. Having said that, since 2008, I actually had a letter of credit where the bank actually failed, and I was unable to recover on one. But generally speaking, letters of credit are pretty much considered gold.
If they were to let their letter of credit expire, how quickly would the village be able to secure the funds to complete the work?
Theoretically, about 14 days.
Okay.
If everything goes as I indicated. But sincerely, Steve, my hope is that they're going to correct this issue and we won't need to take that step.
Okay, thank you.
there a motion for approval?
So moved.
With the amendment of the attorney?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second? Second by Marisak. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item E, which is water well number 15, pump and motor inspection. With that, I'll ask Director Pubens for a summary on this.
Excuse me. Thank you, President Brawley. In your package tonight is a request to enter into an agreement with Lane Christensen Company to pull the pump and motor at well 15. Well 15 is located next to the police department facility. Over the past few months, our water treatment staff has noticed a reduction in the amount of water that well 15 is producing. Generally, when that happens, we monitor it for a period of time to see if we have established a trend or if it's just a one-off situation. In this case, it is consistently trending down. We had technicians from Lane come out and do some electrical tests on the motor, and based on those results, it appears that the motor is running properly, so it's pulling the right amperage and producing, as it's supposed to. So that leads us to believe that there may be a hole in what's called the column piping. As you can imagine, the pump is in the bottom of the hole, about 1,000 feet down. It pushes water up to the surface through a pipe that's attached to the pump itself and outlets at the surface. So if there's a hole in that pipe, part of the water that the pump is pushing up is just spilling back out and recirculating. So that's our guess, but to be certain on that, we need to pull the pump and motor and all the column piping. So this agreement would allow Lane Christensen to come in, pull all that gear. They would store it on the well site where we would do a field inspection of all the equipment. And then based on the review, on the results of that field inspection, we develop a final scope of repairs, and we bring that back for further discussion. So we have a service agreement with Lane Christensen in which we get 5% off labor charges in exchange for having them as our preferred provider, for lack of a better term. So after all that, again, I'm asking for approval to enter into an agreement with Lane Christensen for approximately $25,000 to pull the pump and motor at well 15. Take any questions.
How old is the pump?
Pardon me?
How old is the pump?
Just over 2 years. Put it in 2012. So unusual that you would have a problem with it this soon, but different water sources have different corrosive features to them, not to the point where they're dangerous to drink in any way, but they react with iron more aggressively. It could be a defect in the pipe. It could be a number of things, but it's unusual that after 2 years you have to pull them.
Was the pipe installed at the same time as the pump?
Yes, actually, their ends are threaded together, so the pump and motor are basically hanging off this 1,000-foot long stretch of pipe segments that are screwed together.
Is there any sort of warranty from the manufacturer of the pipe?
I would think that probably after this period of time, no, but we'll look into that. I
Okay.
think after 2.5 years, probably not, but certainly something we could look into. And we'd also look to see if there were defects, or other, problems as it went in that were undetected at the time.
I understand, from my reading, this is not a budgeted item. Do we have money in any of these? I believe we have money in the funds for cases such as this. Is that correct?
We do. We have a line item, which I failed to put on the cover sheet here, that we use for well and pump repair and maintenance. We generally try to identify planned pump maintenance with that, but that money is also available to do this type of operation. Now, again, this is will be a relatively small amount of money. $25,000 is a lot of money, but when you're talking about pump repairs, it's not too bad. We may find out it's a very inexpensive repair, that it's just a few segments of column piping, but we may find out that there's problems with the pump itself or with the motor, and then again, we'd put that estimate together, and Engineer Wallers and I would come back to the board and lay out how that would fit into the budget and et cetera. We'd also look at demand and need and when we felt we had to have the pump and motor back in. Our goal is always to get them back in service as soon as we can. But there may, we do have some additional capacity that we may be able to rely on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? A motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes?
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yeah.
Trustee Heinz.
Thank you.
That carries 6-0. We don't have any items for discussion this evening. I'll move on to new or unfinished business.
I have two quick items. Director Pubens? Seasons Ridge Boulevard is fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The patching on Briarcliff looks really good as well. So I just wanted to point that out, and thank you for getting that all coordinated.
I appreciate that. If I could, I'd just like to give a nod to Engineer Waller's staff. Chris Ott was our main field person out there. He did a great job in challenging time of year. So thank you very much.
My other question, when I looked at the tape of the Cal meeting, I wasn't able to pick this up. When you all were finished with the discussion of the HR manual, did you happen to give a date when that's coming back to the board?
We did not give a specific date. It was coming back to the board. We will bring it back in December.
Okay, and you're going to give us a little bit of notice when that's coming back, so we make sure we've reviewed everything?
The intent was to bring it back at the December 8th board meeting,
Okay.
but if the board needs more time, we can certainly bring it back at the
Can we bring it
December
back?
16th.
Yeah, can we bring it back to the second one? I'd prefer that. I don't know if anyone else.
I have no objection. That's fine with me.
It leads into an item I just wanted to mention, is that for December board meetings, since December fills up quickly, I wanted to, the thought was that we'd have our December 8th meeting. We would have the cow on December 16th, but post that as a special board meeting so that we could take action there, and then cancel the December 22nd meeting, since it's the week of Christmas, if that is okay with the board.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
Will we be able to get that HR manual prior? I think that's, your point is you would like to get it more than 3 days before the meeting, correct?
Correct.
Certainly,
Yes,
we can put
correct.
it out. We can put it out probably next week or the week after, so you can have it by the time of the first board meeting, and then have it, so you have it for the next week.
Thank you.
I have a quick item.
Real quick. Will you also post that on the website when you do?
Sure.
Just for clarification purposes, with the tax referendum passing, I know that there have been some questions as far as, I don't think the public understands how long it takes to get the money to do these things. I've seen some postings that the tax referendum is passed, why isn't my street done? Well, it's only been 7 days. Can you kind of run through that, or someone from staff run through that as far as, this is what we've passed, we've already said it's going to the state on such and such a time, we're receiving the funds about 3 months later, that should be October of next year, which means we're really out of the construction schedule for next year. We're looking at actually spending the money that we're receiving as far as the tax referendum in fiscal year, this is 2016, correct?
It will be in calendar year
16,
16.
fiscal year 17.
Fiscal year 17. It would be the summer of 16.
Okay, so for all, summer of 2016 is when we're doing the work. Okay, it just, can we put that out there, media? That way they understand, and I'm not getting any calls saying, hey, why isn't my street done? And to start, it's the middle of November, but
It's trustee Youngerman's fault that your street isn't done.
no.
And
Get that.
Justin covered almost all of that at the beginning of the meeting.
I was here for the beginning of the meeting. but I want to make sure that the public is aware of that, because I've seen numerous posts and questions as far as the tax referendum.
So if anybody's watching this right now, just rewind the tape to the beginning,
Yep.
and Justin answers most of that. But it will be fiscal year 16, so May of 2016 before we,
Fiscal year 17.
17, May of 2016 before that gets implemented, at best. And Steve, if you want to say something about parking in garages or any of that, now's your time, because we're about to adjourn.
No.
Anybody have anything else? Yeah.
On our Caesars Ridge Boulevard, I see where the big bomber trucks knocked a bunch of big limbs. They were sitting on that island. And then I was happened to be out in the front yard working, and they pulled the truck down on Briarcliff and back down the Lakeside Drive. A big thing, branch like this, it's all split in half, and the only thing that's holding it up there is that bark. We gonna make them pay for that, or who's gonna do that?
Mike?
I can address that partially, trustee. Ed Paff, maybe you spoke to Ed about this. He's aware of it. He's going to go out and take a look.
Only thing that's holding that up is a little bit of the bark, because it's just like splintered all the way through. That thing's about that big around.
That's a good size limb. Generally, what we do is have Ed go out and see, I mean, obviously, we have to take those broken pieces down. I think then Ed would determine the health of the tree, and we'd have to decide if there was some level of damage that we'd want to try to
You gotta get
claim.
that branch down before it falls in the street on somebody.
Right. I thought he might have been going out today to
Yeah, I
inspect it.
understand on account of the snow.
Yeah. So we'll get that down. As to whether or not we try to make a claim against the contractor, I guess we need to determine if we feel there's, monetary damages from breaking those off.
Maybe on that middle strip on Seasons Ridge Boulevard, you see all the limbs that they knocked down up there? You been there?
I did not. I was through there this evening, but it was dark, so I couldn't
Well, if
see.
them trees die, I think they should pay for new trees.
I don't think that would be unreasonable if we think they were caused by the damage that they did. I'll take a look at that with Ed, and we can try to come up with a summary for the board.
And I also talked to a guy from the city of Aurora, he's the second in command of the street department. He says when they have Geneva Construction doing that work, they didn't like Aurora Blacktop, they put something under that, over the drains, you know what I'm talking about? For your gutters, where the water runs down to your, and they always put a cover in there so that asphalt don't go into the sewer. And he said they have a lot of problems with that asphalt going into the sewer drain. Storm sewer drain.
That's required, right?
Well, I wonder if those are inlets that are wider than the curb?
Pardon me?
I wonder if those are on inlets that are wider than the curb? Generally, the paver box rides right up against the front of the curb in the inlet.
Well, they take that cover off and they put something on Aurora Blacktop put something in there, and then they set that big heavy cover back down, and then when it's all done, they take it off and pull it out.
Are they required to put filter baskets for these kind of projects, or?
No.
Mike said they mill below the drain level, so they're not on top of the drain unless it's a open drain street, then it would cover, so I'm not sure I know exactly what they're referring to.
But if there was, let's say, asphalt that ended up in the storm sewer, it would be their obligation then to clean it out for us.
Yeah. I understand the idea, trustee. I'm not sure if we have any of those situations where the paver is going over the top of those open grates. But we'll double check to make sure, but generally, as Engineer Waller said, if you had an open grate out in the street, you could have that problem. I could see him doing it there, but
Well, I appreciate if you look into it.
we will. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more item trustee Hines reminded me of. On Kate and Emma, there are two storm sewer inlets. They've got the filter fabric from when the houses were being built. The houses are now built, and they never removed the fabric. Can we do that now?
I believe we can. If you'd
Okay.
allow, I'd like to just check with Engineer Wallers. I think he's a little more familiar on the
Okay.
stormwater requirements than I am.
There's one on the north side of Kate, as you're headed out that exit entrance there. And then there's one on the north end of Emma, northeast corner, southeast corner of Emma and Kate, by that empty lot that hasn't been developed yet.
Right. And as many of you know, those are put in at the start of development when there's a lot of open earth that doesn't have vegetation on it. We've come across this in other subdivisions that aren't completely built out. Once they're built out, it's easy, you just pull them out. We've had this come up in those that haven't quite finished and leave it in, take it out. But we'll look into it, and if we can take them out, we'll do that. Obviously, it causes the.
Yeah, it causes the backup in water, and now that we're in the snow season, it's not going to melt real quick, but when it does, it may cause big areas to ice and stuff, so.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
I've been
Thank
on the
you.
other side of this before where the municipality was taking them out, but I'm required by law for my project to keep them in, so if they're there and they're not stabilized, that's probably why they're in, so. Anything else?
One more item, if I may. The Village Holiday Decoration Awards program is underway, and the form is on the village website. You can nominate your own property or that of a neighbor or a business. This year, we've invited Montgomery Business to become part of the program. The entries are due by December 15th, by the end of the day on December 15th, and judging will be December 17th in the evening. So if you've entered, be sure to turn your lights on the evening of December 17th.
Okay. I just had one comment to make. I kind of wanted the board to weigh in on this. In the past, I'd like to see if staff can look at our MFT program moving forward at possibly kicking that off earlier in the season. I know we kind of got under the gun at the end of the season this year, and I'd like us to, at least staff to at least look at that and maybe recommend in future years to kick that off before the fiscal year starts, so that way we don't get into situations like this in the future, if you can look at that.
Will do.
I have another item.
That's your third different.
I have another item.
This might be the item that you, Trustee Bond had sent me an email regarding using the gambling revenues, because right now it goes into the general fund, about possibly using those to help offset the costs of our tree replacement program. It shows people that we're using the money, and by gambling, you are help planting trees, so.
He mentioned that to me as well. What I'd like to do is, I believe in December or January, Justin's going to give a budget update to us, and we can discuss it at that time.
Okay.
Doug?
I'd like to, if I could add something.
Certainly.
Judy had sent an email, but what you'll see at all of our elementary schools, we posted some signs reminding the motoring public not to be on their cell phones. We're using the signs at the schools to emphasize drivers may not operate a motor vehicle on the roadway while using an electronic communication device, specifically a cell phone. The signs were strategically placed in near the schools as a reminder for the motoring public. Sergeant Palco has been in charge of that initiative, and if you've seen them around the schools, we've received nothing but positive feedback from the principals and the motoring public. So just a reminder, you'll see those out.
Thank you.
Did I take your item?
All right, hearing no other ones, you got one?
Is that it?
Steve, you don't have anything else?
Why am I picked on?
I'd like to make a motion to get trustee Youngerman a compass. He was having a little difficulty earlier with the northwest, east, south thing.
All right, future
Well,
meetings.
he'd bring one thing up.
Yeah.
Cover like a blanket. The Packers are going to cover the Patriots next Sunday like a blanket, and I will be there and I'll bring a report back. I'm done.
Thank you. Let the record reflect. You can see future meetings there, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss employment of an employee pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee
Second.
Spurling, second by Trustee Youngerman. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. For the record, What did he say at the start of the meeting?
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by everybody?
Moved by everybody.
Moved by Trustee Hines, second by
Youngerman.
Youngerman. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.